Why don't we start at where most people start? Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? All that stuff.
Where I'm from today. So today I'm actually from Clive is where I'm from. My kids go to Northwest. I have a couple kids that go to Iowa State. My oldest son graduated from Iowa State. I'm originally from a small town, north central Iowa. Actually, it's a bunch of small towns. But I always say Clarion, Belmont, Eagle Grove, Renwick.
Sure.
If you took that little area and you pointed every direction, and it's about a 11-mile circle is the farm I was raised on. So north central Iowa, God's country.
Yeah. Good soil, flat earth.
Oh my gosh, yeah. We have a really good farm up there.
And so growing up on a farm, that you automatically have a work ethic installed at the factory when you grow up on a farm. I mean, every day is work.
Yeah, 100%. You woke up and it was work. And we were from a farm where my dad was actually was raised in a city in Akron, Ohio. And he was brought out to Iowa through Iowa State. And then he introduced himself to being on a farm. And so in north central Iowa, everybody is born and raised generational farms. And all of a sudden a guy from the city shows up, marries a farm girl, and tries to figure out how to farm. And at the time, a lot of people really didn't want to help in that environment. So we weren't like the most wealthiest of farmers.
Right.
And Dad was kind of learning from the ground up. So I feel in my head, if I look back at it, I would say from age 5, I was working.
Yeah.
Every day.
And so you did school activities, sports, things like that?
Yeah.
And then you'd come home and there was work to do?
Oh, yeah, all the time. I mean, I would say when I was a child, everything, we had anywhere from a 3 to a 5 acre garden. And when you sat at the kitchen table, everything at the kitchen table came from the farm. Like literally, and if you looked at the milk, our neighbor down the street had dairy cows, so we had milk from the dairy cows. My dad's best friend at church was a cattle farmer. We raised hogs, so we would exchange 2 pigs for a cow. So we had 3 freezers that were completely full. We had anywhere between 5 to 10 acres of sweet corn, and literally everything at the table was from the farm.
So I know because I had a big garden growing up. You were in the garden a lot.
Oh my gosh, I love, but I still love gardening to this day. Yeah, no, I hate sweet corn. I hated it forever because every day I'd have to go out and I'd have to pick sweet corn, and the mosquitoes and it was horrendous.
The reason I'm asking about this is I know you well enough to know how busy your days are now. I mean, you work a lot. Running a business is tough. It's a lot of hours.
I think a lot of business owners spend any successful business, there's a lot of hours put into it. And there's some type of storyline that leads back to something like this, I think.
So you got done with high school, and then what happened?
So backing up a little bit through high school or pre-high school, but going into 8th grade, I had a brother that was born with disabilities.
Okay.
So what happened is we spent the next 4 years, my sister, I have 5 siblings counting my brother with disabilities. My older sister, I was the youngest at the time, and then my brother Joe came, but I was 12, Joe was born, and my sister and I experienced through that a person with disabilities that was in the hospital for almost 9 months. To work back then, the farm wasn't working as successful as it was a hobby kind of for my father. He was working full-time at a manufacturing plant, 12, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then we were just trying to survive to get through school. So as I graduated high school, in my head, I wanted to be in medicine because we spent a lot of times at the hospital. The things we were working at was stuff with medical. You can relate to what I'm talking about, where it was just, and so in my head, it was something that came natural to me. I was used to caring for people. So in sports, I was very good in sports. So I actually got a track scholarship to go run track, and it actually led me through UNI. I ended up going out to school out in Ohio, and I was going to school actually to be a nurse because I thought that would be not the easy way, but I was thinking a nurse practitioner was right in line. And at that time, nurse practitioners weren't as popular as they are today.
Yeah.
And it was up and coming. It was just a new direction, and so I was really looking into it. And so I went to college, and I ran track in college, played a little basketball, and then was getting my nursing degree. And I'm literally today 15 credit hours from having a nursing degree.
So what changed? What changed your mind?
Got an injury in track. I began this with, we weren't the wealthiest of people in the world, so I couldn't afford to go to school. I had done all the student loans I could, and I had an experience that wasn't the greatest experience in the nursing field. And I was also raised on a farm in north central Iowa. The sky is limitless. You can see forever. And I did not, and I think as we grow up, we learn to appreciate the things in life that we like. And I realized that if you go into a lot of these hospitals, you're in dark rooms, you're in rooms that have no windows, you're in long hallways, you never get outside. And the day that I decided it wasn't right, I was literally down at Iowa Methodist Hospital, and I was looking out a window to the south. It was a spring morning. You could see the trees, everything was blooming. It was a sunny day out, and it was an overwhelming decision came over me that this isn't right for me. And so I literally at that time walked away from nursing, and I looked at being able to be outdoors and doing something outdoors.
So you went into construction eventually, right?
Yes, I went, again, path through Kansas City, but I got into sales. Wanting to get back to the farm, I moved to Des Moines. Des Moines, from where I'm from, Des Moines is this monstrous, huge town.
Right.
So I moved here thinking I'm moving to the city, and Des Moines a very large, small town.
It is.
And it's a fun town to be in. But yeah, I came to Des Moines. My wife today, I had met her, and I was just walking around. Her dad was a home builder, and I was walking around one of his buildings one day, or a new house he was building, and the backside there was a deck laying there behind the house. And I looked at it and I says, "What?" And he goes, "This is a deck." And I go, "How long does it take for you, the guys, to build one?" He goes, "Oh, it's about a 2-man crew, 3-man crew takes them about a week to 10 days to build a deck." And I was like, "Would you be willing to let me do it?" And he's like, "Yeah, if you want to." So I decided on a Friday afternoon at noon, I skipped away from my sales job, and I decided to start using my future father-in-law's tools, and I started to build a deck. And I told him I'd have it done by Sunday, and he kind of laughed at me and said that won't happen. And between golf outings, he would stop by and make sure everything was right. And Sunday evening at 6 p.m., he came out, he walked around it. I had it completely done, and he just said, "This is one of the best decks I've seen." And he continued to write me a check for $2,500. And I'm like,
Oh,
okay.
this is great.
This is great. I was outdoors. I got a great tan. I got a good workout. And you paid me $2,500. When's your next deck? So the next weekend he had another deck for me. And then that turned into this one to this one. And the next thing I know, I'm 50 decks deep. And I have more money than I've ever had. And I'm 26 years old.
In a total change of direction.
Total, completely. I didn't like the sales side of things because it just made me uncomfortable. I'm not a salesperson.
Even today.
I don't feel I'm a salesperson. I like talking what I like today is I like identifying people's problems and how can I help.
Right.
And then what can we do to help those problems out? I think that's who I am as a person.
I think as a special needs dad, when you get that diagnosis, and you and I have talked about that, you're like, why me? And your parents probably said the same thing, why God did this happen? And then you see why, and all the good it brings out in other people. There's a verse in the Bible where there's a blind man by the side of the road, and the disciples asked Jesus, why did this happen to this man? Did he do evil? And he said, no, this happened so that God can show his glory through. And Jesus heals him, and he goes off and tells the story. I think that I have 3 boys, one special needs and the other 2 not, and I think having him for a brother makes them better people. I think it makes them. I know it's made me less selfish and me more patient, and I think as a sibling that probably helps shape who you are.
Oh, I 100%. I don't think I'd be where I'm at today if it wasn't for my brother. And I'm not just my brother, my sister, my parents, and the experiences that we had to go through. As soon as my brother was born, we were kind of, I don't want to say left. I've always thought that a good book to write would be The Forgotten Child, or The Child Left Behind. I'll get emotional talking about it, but just like you just mentioned, your son has 2 siblings, and a lot of times everybody focuses. So a lot of times when I go up to a family that has disabilities, yes, there's the child with disabilities, but always hiding behind them or somewhere in the picture is that brother or sibling.
Yeah.
And I think they get lost or they get forgotten, but in the same moment, they're not forgotten because they learn so much through them that they're actually a more powerful human being coming out from the backside.
I think so.
Does that make sense? And
yeah.
I've always thought some type of book or something about that would be so powerful, because a lot of families get really focused on the one child, and there's this other one and nothing against that child. It's not politically correct to talk this way, but there's so much power in everything that's going on that forgotten child has so much power.
Yeah.
From the experience.
I agree.
If it's funneled the right way.
So, he's probably at least part of the reason why you went into nursing, and probably at least part of the reason why you have such a focus here on giving back and giving to the community and helping people. That'd be my guess.
Yeah. I'm from a family. I was raised that way. And then Joe does help out and a lot, because when you're in a family that you surround yourself by people with disabilities or individuals and families, you can selfishly look at yourself, but you're constantly having to give something up to help the betterment of the family or the group.
Yeah.
And that's just your life. You get to the point, it's just natural. And you don't feel right if you don't do it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
You're not doing it you don't go down that path for any accolades or anything outside of that. You're just doing it because if you don't do it, you feel uncomfortable.
Right.
People ask me why you don't sleep at night, and sometimes it's that. Yes, the business at times, all businesses have their up and downs, but a lot of times is when you're in a down because you're worried about how you're not going to be able to help these people. Because when you're at the top, you have things are flowing, right? Things are great. You have extra funds to do this, or this. But when you're at the bottom and you're at the bottom side of it, and you're like, what do I got to? Then you can't help like you want to.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and if you're not being true to yourself, then it's tough to sleep at night when it bugs you. It's in the back of your head.
It eats at you.
Yeah. Okay, so going back, so now we've gotten into deck building, and then I believe you got into home building at some point.
Well, what happened? After you do so many decks, or you do something, and I take this in, I'm assuming this is any industry, anything you do, a deck's a deck. Once you do something a time and time, and I don't mean anything against anybody that does decks for a living. That's not what I'm saying. But to me, in my head, I'm 28 years old, 27, 28, going to be 29, and I'm looking at my future, and I'm like, okay, how many decks? You're mathematically trying to figure it out. And mathematically, you're getting to a point where, man, that's a lot of decks. How do I get to where I want to be? And then you also look at your body, what's physically going on.
Yeah.
And I was related to a family, I am related to a family still, of home builders. And, there was a lot of people coming along in that environment where they had zero experience in home building, and the next thing you know, they're out home building. And my background is I want as much knowledge as I can, so then when I become what I want to become, which at that time was to be a home builder, I would have amassed all this knowledge. So the thing that I thought was natural, number one, I love the physical side of it. I love building things. There's not just like on a farm, when you go out and you plant the seed, throughout the next 3-4 months, you're watching the seed grow.
Right.
And by the 4th of July, knee high, right? And the next day, you're up to the tassels. And the next thing you know, it's starting to change color by September. First frost, and then you're harvesting. The great thing about framing is day one, you show up, it's a foundation. The next day you show up, your first floor deck is on. Day 2, your first floor deck walls are all up. By day 3, you're putting the deck onto the next. You see when you watch it, every time you pull away, you can turn around and look at what I did.
I did that.
That's what my day completed. And there's not too many careers or stuff that you can do that you can see that on a daily basis.
Right.
I mean, you could literally at times you could see it from when the day started till break. We did this, and that was to me man, that was satisfaction. I really enjoyed that. Plus, if you look at a framing contractor, when they get done framing a home, who shows up? Well, the electrician shows up, the plumber shows up, the HVAC guy shows up, right?
Right.
You're going to have insulators show up. The drywall guys are going to show up at times. You're going to have your siding. If we're not putting the siding on as a framer, your cider's going to be there, your roofer's going to be there. Every trade's going to be there at some point when you're framing. So to me, in my head, I'm going to be able to learn and amass so much knowledge about what does the electrician need, what does the HVAC guy, have I framed this the right way, what do I have to do differently to do it? And that's what got me into or interested in framing. So then I just started heckling. Now a good friend of mine and one of my mentors, I heckled him for probably a month and a half, and finally, just out of jest, he said, yeah, I'll come tomorrow and I'll work you. I don't know if you ever heard that storyline, but
No.
Bill's storyline. I pestered Bill for probably 4 weeks. And finally one day I showed up and he's just like, okay, you come here tomorrow, I'll put you to work. And I don't know if this story was exactly like this, but I pulled up that next day, had my tool belt, I get out, and the first thing he tells me to do is he goes, I think he did it on purpose. Gilchrist, Leachman, whoever it was, they dropped the lumber right at the curb of the street, like 30 feet from the house. And Bill looks, and it was 2 by 6 by 9 foot long. And he goes, that lumber over there, he goes, I need it in the garage.
So you had to move all of it.
I moved it. I moved it all to the garage. And then I got done and he looked at me. He goes, you stupid, blah, 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 and went on. And he said, no, I didn't tell you there. I said I needed it in front of the house. I moved it to the front of the house. I get done. He goes, those are for the basement. Do you not understand when I tell you to put it in the basement, take it to the basement? So then I carried. That's all I did all day. All day long, I took these 96 or whatever there were studs, and I moved them all the way around the house. And he would just, by the time we're done, he was chewing, just being very vocal with me.
So this was a test of some kind.
And what he didn't understand was I was raised on a hog farm. And I was the youngest at the time, and I was the smallest. So when we had to go out to the hogs and shovel the manure out of the finishing unit, I was the one that could fit in the far back where it was 4 foot tall, and you couldn't breathe because it's 100 degrees outside, and I'm shoveling it to my brother who's in front of me, who's shoveling it to the bobcat in front of him to go dump it. And that's, you can't, there's nothing you can say to me or call me that I haven't experienced in my life. And it fell off me. And I don't know if he's ever met or he had ever met a person that had that type of work ethic from the farm, because he was in the city.
What else you got?
Yeah,
this is nothing.
I was like, he did not understand. And I don't know. I don't think I've ever gone back and had that conversation with him, but I kind of actually humored it. I got home that night, and I think he was thinking he had the best of me, and I got home and I just chuckled to my life. I go, this guy doesn't know I was raised on a hog farm. Yeah, I got a lot to show him. So I worked as hard as I could, and it was great because we got paid by the piece rate. So it was a percentage of the profit of the job. Again, I'd never seen that kind of money before. And
well, it's hard work, though.
Oh, it's hard work, but it's fun. And when you enjoy it, I mean, the next thing I know, I'm again 29, almost 30 years old. My first child now. I have 2 kids that are in my life. I get the ability to go out and frame individual houses. I'm making 6 figures a year. Now that calculator in my brain's going, I'm like 52, 55 years old. Dude, I'm done.
And you want to be in that line of work.
And you do. Or give me 10 years, I'm going to have this so mastered, I'm going to be the best builder in this market, and I can move forward.
What year was this?
2002, 2003.
Okay.
That's when it was rolling.
So you're coming
80,
up on
90,000, 100,000, and then I realized at that time, and whether it was right or wrong, I went back and I approached him. I said, you've got me with 2 guys framing my own houses, and you're giving me an extra $1,000 a house. How about I do this? I'm going to go buy all my own equipment, get everything I can get. I'll go get my own jobs, and then I'll go frame. And every house that I build, I'll pay you $1,000, and they'll be my jobs. And at the time, that just wasn't the right mix, and so he just let me go out on my own. And that's when I did some work for my father-in-law, and then I went out to different builders here in the market. And by myself, I was framing up 30, 35 homes a year. That was 2003 to 2012 is when I was done, but in 08, 09 it got hard.
Yeah. And I think, you could talk to millions of people whose lives were forever affected by what happened in '08 when the economy died, and it affected a lot of industries, and a lot of people were let go and had to find new jobs and find a different way to make a living. And I know that home building was
the forefront.
Like you could see out in the suburb. We lived out west there where the wave broke, and you had all these basements dug or these foundations, and they sat and sat and sat and sat.
Or houses that were half built.
Yeah.
And didn't even have siding on them at those times.
So now you've got kids.
Yeah, at that time I had 4 kids.
Right.
I had 4 kids is when that happened. And I remember when it happened and yeah, it was tough because we went, to give you pricing, we went from getting paid $7.50 a square foot as a framer to getting paid $3, $3.25. I remember taking a job at $2.75 a square foot. Do the math on that. That's less than that's what, 2/5 of what you were getting paid.
Can you make a profit doing that?
I was not a smart. I didn't say I was a smart businessman.
I'm just wondering.
I told you I was a framer, didn't I? No, but a lot of lessons were started. That's when I really started to learn, because I had a little bit of cockiness. I was really confident about what I was doing. I felt like I was very good at what I was doing, but what I didn't understand was the business side of things. So my solution in my brain was volume. Turn more money, turn more jobs, when in reality, if you did the math on what we were doing, it mathematically wasn't working.
Right.
So we had a nice sum of money sitting away in savings, and my wife had been a teacher, and now she was a stay-at-home mom.
4 kids.
4 kids, and how can you afford daycare?
Right.
And I started working that way. So instead of me having just myself in a crew, I decided to go to 2 to 3 crews. And that was by the time I got to 2011, we were at the point of almost bankruptcy, and we're just like, oh my gosh, we're at the very bottom.
What are we going to do?
What are we going to do? And again, I thought volume was better. So the next thing I did is I jumped myself up to 11, 12 crews. I was working for, at the time, one of the biggest builder in the market, I think, that's ever been here in Des Moines, actually went out of business then.
Regency, yeah.
And then another builder stepped in, another large builder still in the market today, I believe. I actually got on with them as their number 2 framer. And I was framing for them. And that year we did 100, that was by the time I got to 2011. And I had 13 crews. I had framed 135 homes. I was into the millions of dollars. Yet, on the backside, I was paying all my people as I could pay them. When it was all done, coming into November, December of 2012, I was out $120,000 for one of these builders on 120 days. It was going into Christmas. I didn't have money to get Christmas presents for my kids. All the people I'd paid them as I could. And I looked at my wife and I was like, we're down to $5,000. What are we going to do? And so it was at that time I decided it was time to be done. So that was in November, December 2012. And at the time Facebook was just starting to become a popular deal. Right. And if you backed up a little bit, in 2009, when the crash started, I started getting into hobbies. So one of my hobbies I love to do is to go snowmobiling. And so I had bought, in the first time ever, I was able to afford to buy a brand new snowmobile in 2008 going into 2009. And once 2009 hit, the crash was on us, and I felt it. And it was just like, if you're a ship at sea and you see a severe storm coming, what do you do? You go out and you close the hatches. Everything gets closed down. You seal it up. You get ready so you can weather the storm. So I had been out snowmobiling in 2008 going into 2009, and as I came back in December from that first trip out, I was like, it's getting ugly. I need to sell this snowmobile. So I took this brand new snowmobile and I put it up for sale on Craigslist, and I had this guy on a Saturday morning respond to an ad for a snowmobile for sale out of Minneapolis, and this was a Saturday. And the guy goes, yeah. He goes, you know what? I know I got great pictures here. Yeah, I'll buy it. I'll buy it from you for $10,000. And this was a Saturday afternoon, and I was at the point I needed money.
Right.
And I'm like, great, let's do it. He goes, let's meet at the Casey's. And many people have probably been there, the Casey's in Clear Lake, Iowa, right off the interstate, right there. Right there. So, and I've been there many times, north central Iowa. So I meet him there, and I'm pretty confident because I had a pretty nice truck and a nice trailer, and I had my snowmobile, and it was this nice snowmobile. And I pull in, and this guy's got a nicer truck, a bigger trailer, with more snowmobiles in it. And then he proceeds to walk up to me. And this is Sunday morning, right? It's Sunday. So he responds to me on Saturday afternoon. Sunday morning at like 9 a.m., I'm meeting this guy at this Casey's, and he proceeds to start pulling out $100 bills, and he gives me $10,000 in cash on my bumper. And I'm in my head going, who has $10,000 sitting in their house?
Right.
And what does this guy do? So I go, what do you do? And he goes, oh, I'm in construction. Now, I don't know if you've ever shaken a guy that does construction and you've shaken their hands.
You know.
Do you know, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay, so I shook this guy's hand when I met him. No way this guy did construction. I mean, no offense to,
hands like
to my
mine.
friend. No
He's got
offense.
typing hands.
Yeah, I'm like, no. And I'm like, you do what? He goes, yeah. He goes, I do storm restoration. I'm a restoration contractor. In one ear, processed out the other. Give me my $10,000. I'm going home and I'm giving this to my wife, and she's going to be so happy with me. I did it. So I did. That was in 2009. All right. So fast forward 2 years later, a year and a half later, Facebook's now popular. I get an instant message on Facebook, and it says, hey, you got another one of those sleds to sell? And I'm like, who is this guy? I sold it to him because the market's crashing. He's in construction. How is he doing well? And everybody I know is getting out of the industry. And through Facebook, I became his friend, and I started to watch him. And I said, no, I don't have one. But I start watching him. He has a yacht down in Florida.
Jeez.
He's got a nice car. The truck he had, he traded it for a newer truck. Just everything about it, I was just, okay, I'm watching this guy. So from 2009 to 10, 11 to 12, I had basically been watching this guy and his successes that he had been having. And he ran an ad going into November of 2012 that was saying, exterior restoration, roofing, siding, windows, gutters, sales, Minneapolis, Minnesota, or Denver, Colorado. I looked at my wife. I said, I don't know what this guy's doing, but he's obviously very successful. We need to consider this, and I know I can do this. Are you willing to move to Minneapolis or Denver? She's like, I'll move to Denver. I don't know about Minneapolis. And we got it lined up that in January we jumped in the car. Her and I drove up to Minneapolis. We met with this gentleman, his two other partners. We sat down, basically laid on the table everything I'm talking to you about right now. And they get done, and they go, well, this is what we'd like to do. We'd like to offer you a position. However, we don't want you to go to Denver or Minneapolis. We're actually trying to franchise this business model, and we'd like you to open a franchise in the Des Moines market for us. And in 3 years through sweat equity, we will allow you ownership of the franchise. Are you willing? So April 13th of 2013, I opened up for a national franchise here in the Des Moines area is what I did. So that's how I got from framing into restoration.
Into this line of work.
Yep.
Different company, right, at the time?
Yep, total different. They're credit to the company. They're still around. They have 38 locations nationally. There's new ownership, which was needed because part of my storyline was it was great. They came down, did some great training. They explained to me everything about exterior restoration, how it works. The training was good. I'm not going to say it's top notch, but for at the time what was going on and what was trying to be accomplished, it was good. I went out and basically it was storm restoration. So after a storm event, go out into a neighborhood, you go knocking on doors, and you let them know, hey, you potentially have storm damage, and you take your knowledge, you do a evaluation for them, and their model was in 5-10 minutes, you come back down, you say to the homeowner, show them the different damages that they have, and then you can let them know you can help them through the claims process. And the ones that we were able to help out, amazing. It was great. I was able to help people that at the time a new roof was $8,000-9,000. Their cost to most homeowners was anywhere from $0 to $500, maybe $1,000 at most, and we were able to help them out. And out of 10 homeowners that actually would get a claim, I could help 2 to 3 of them out. So that was really good. So I learned a ton. On the opposite side of it, I also learned all of the uglies about the industry. I understand what you're starting to see today you're seeing in the Floridas, the Texases. You can even kind of argue here in Iowa today, insurance companies and how, I don't want to say they're being taken advantage of, but how stormers are abusing the process, if that makes any sense.
So they come flying in after a storm, and they're from out of town. Nobody knows who they are. You don't know what kind of...
You don't know their storyline.
Right.
You don't know their background. How good is their warranty? Go to Tommy Boy. How good's the warranty? As soon as they're done, they're not here anymore and they're gone. So you had that type of experience. I mean, that's literally the type of experience on the backside. And what ultimately happened is one day I lived out off 156 north of Douglas, and I was sitting there on a Sunday. My kids are in the front yard playing, and the next thing you know, this old veteran pulls in my driveway on a Sunday morning, him and his wife after church, and I'm sitting on my front stoop at 11 o'clock in the morning. He walks up and he says, and I'd done some work with him when I was framing for one of the builders, and I'd helped him out, and he really liked what we did. And he said, "Hey, Chandler, I need to talk to you." I'm like, "Great, let's talk."
No.
Well, no, we need to talk in at your kitchen table. Right? When at the time, 80-year-old plus gentleman walks up to you, and he's a war vet, and he's telling you he wants to talk with you at the kitchen table,
You do it.
you do it, number one.
Right.
Number two, that's a serious conversation.
Right.
It isn't he understands life, and that's where you need to go. So we went into the kitchen table. My kids come running around me. They're all hanging over the top of me, and I had to, the company made me logo my truck, and they did all this different things. And they had a national sales trainer that came in to train me, and he was also doing some work on the side for himself, trying to get business for him. And what had happened was that gentleman who I'd done work with had experienced the trainer that was training me, what he had done across the street with a neighbor of his. And all he said to me was, "Chandler," he goes, "I don't know what you're into, but I do know this. Whatever it is, you need to run the opposite direction as fast as you can."
He didn't like the way things were done.
He's like, "Who I know you are and what you do for business, this isn't you. And if you want your name to be ran, if you want your name to be shot and gone in this town, you keep doing what you do. And if not, you need to run the opposite direction as fast as you can." So within 2 weeks, I was able to I was able to reach back out. I got myself out of that franchise by the end of the year. So that was the end of 2013 going into 14.
I'm amazed that you're able to do that so quickly.
There's a lot of dynamics that were involved with that were, obviously you're a God-fearing man in conversation. There was a lot of God involved in it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot in most any successful people's storyline that follows God, there's you can see the hand come in and guide you. You've seen the footprints on the sand.
And I think you learn to listen to little things.
Well, that goes all the way back to you have a son with disabilities. You raised in that environment. People, have you heard God talk? A lot of people are like, "What are you talking about?" But I think a lot of times when you're raised in the type, or like for us, or with your experience, is that a fair?
Yeah.
When you're being talked to. When you're being directed.
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of guidance, and a lot of doors were opened, and a lot of doors were closed the right way. No different than that gentleman. Whether he was an angel that pulled in my driveway, I don't know what he was. I see him. I know he's still around, so he's not but he's a good man. But that person was there to guide me and run me a different direction, and I changed the direction. And at the beginning of 2014, I was able to start our own brand, which is Superstorm today.
So this is yours.
This is ours. This was here in Des Moines. Probably my biggest mistake was the name of the company.
Oh. I like it, of course, being a weather guy.
Oh, you're a weather guy. Well, so can I tell you the story of why it's Superman?
Sure.
All right. So what happened in 2012? If you look back in weather, 2013, what happened on the East Coast?
Big
storm.
Sandy?
Superstorm Sandy. Superstorm Sandy. Isn't that what they called it?
Right. Yeah, I remember it being called that. That's not a proper meteorological term, but yes, I remember that.
They called it Superstorm Sandy. And then on top of that, they had I had gone snowmobiling in December. So when this was going down, I also was able to get back into snowmobiling, thankfully.
Good.
Because that's my piece. And I went out west. And when we went out west, at the time, all the reality shows were a big hit. So a friend of mine, again, back to Minneapolis, a friend of mine was looking at actually starting a reality show looking at restoration and storm restoration. And he had hired a television crew to come out, or a filming crew to come out and follow us while we snowmobiled backcountry Wyoming.
Oh, cool.
It was awesome. So we're out backcountry and up in the mountains, 11,000 feet, 10,000 feet snowmobile. And there's a guy with a big camera, video, you doing your stuff that you do and having fun. Well, in it, that guy was a marketing person out of Texas. And one of the times a guy got stuck. And when you get stuck in snow in Wyoming, the snow isn't like 2 feet deep. It's 8 to 10 feet deep.
Right.
And this one guy had gotten stuck behind a tree. So I went over to dig him out from behind the tree. And as I got done digging him out, and I was like, it was a lot of energy to do it. So I came around, and that was when all the Alter Ego shirts came out. So I literally come around the corner, and I'm so hot. When you get hot, you just you kind of do this as you're starting to dig more. So no one knows that I have my Alter Ego shirt on. And so I come out from behind this tree, and literally I just go and I pull it out like this. I had my Superman shirt on underneath it, which was the Superman logo. And I just went, like this, and all of it. And so I get back home afterwards. I decide I'm no longer part of the franchise. I'm going on my own. I reach back out to this guy out of Dallas because I know he's in marketing. I'm like, hey, I need a brand. Can you help me? He goes, give me 10 days. I'll be back with you.
Huh.
And in 10 days, he reached back out, and he goes, Superstorm Restoration. And he took the Superstorm logo of me doing my pullback along with Superstorm Sandy, and that's where he pulled it all together.
I like it, but
yeah, the challenge you have is it's not your traditional Steffi roofing or Steffi and Sons roofing or Steffi family roofing. It isn't XYZ builders. It's Superstorm. So it's in the beginning, it was a little bit challenging for what we did. But where we were different from the company, the national franchise that's still out there, our motto is we want to teach and educate property owners on the condition of their property.
Okay.
And that obviously year and weather, but whether it's today, tomorrow, a week from now, 6 months, a year, sometime in the next 9 years, because the average person moves every 9 years, you're going to need our services. That's a fact. You're going to need something. You're going to need siding worked on, your windows, your gutters, your roof. Something is going to happen. You're going to need our services. And in today's world, the only way you can find it out is you go Google something.
right.
Our approach is, you know what, let's go out and bring it to the doorstep. And one way to do it is we do look at weather. Yes, let's look at weather. A lot of weather in the world we live in today, you go into a neighborhood where the house is 10, 12, 15 years old, 20 years old, and there's been a storm event in the last year, the odds of some type of damage being there is much higher.
Right.
At the same time, that person that has a 15-year-old roof, they don't want to put a new roof on tomorrow, right?
No. Yeah.
They'd like to extend. If I could sit and go to that homeowner and say, hey, what if I could get you another 5 to 7 years on your roof? Would you be interested? Heck yeah, they would.
Yes.
But at the same token, if the storm event has happened and I go out and if there's damages, well, what if I can help you through the claims process? I can get you a new roof today.
Because what a headache. Yeah. If you can help, sure.
So either way, so the old process with the company I was with before in Des Moines market, for every 10 homes you go and do an evaluation on them, 6 to 7 of them had some type of damage or something that needed to be done, of which 2 to 3 of them, it's just simple maintenance, a simple repair, nothing major. But 3 to 4 of them, they have significant enough damage that they could potentially file a claim depending on who their insurance carrier and what it is, right? And if there's been the storm event that has happened, you can help them through that claims process. The company that I was with originally, when I looked at 10 houses, they wanted me to file claims on 10 houses.
Oh.
Maybe 7, but they wanted
So
10.
people are getting services that maybe don't need services.
That was before, yes, with the company I was with. And of those, the same numbers were only going to get approved, 2 to 3, of which you're going to get 1 or 2. And the problem I was having with that model was we're in Des Moines. I told you I have 5 kids now, right?
Right.
Okay, I go to sporting events. I have kids in school. I go grocery shopping at the same stores everybody else does. We all see each other.
Yeah.
So the 6 or 7 I can't help out, I have to see them. And if I had them file a claim, a lot of them aren't very happy with that concept.
Right.
So our model now is to teach and educate. My focus is the 6 or 7 that don't need our services. I want to be able to help them out in the future.
They will.
And I
probably.
can. In our model, the way we do it, I'm going to go out and do a full evaluation. I document everything in software and technology that then if something was to ever happen in the future, they're able to come back and compare apples to apples. Or they might need a simple maintenance or repair I can help them with today. The 3 or 4 that actually have damages, I can help them today because of how good our documentation is and what our knowledge is. So that's what the model was with Superstorm when we started in 2014, moving forward to where we're at today.
And that's the way you set it up. This is the way I want to do things in my company.
Because a lot of when you look at, and I'll use the word stormer, but when you look at a lot of contractors in general, and I'm not even going to use the word stormer, just contractors in general, they're focused on the big ticket item, and they're focused on getting and selling that to you today, right? So they want to come out, they want to give you a quote, they want to give you a quote for a full replacement, this, or this. They're not worried about whether they don't need your service. They're focused on getting the job today.
Right.
All right.
Well, they're not going to be here a long time.
Yeah, right. If it's the stormer, they're going to be here and gone. If it's the local guys, yes, they're helping. But what about the 6 or 7 that you go meet with that they really don't need the work done? They just need a maintenance or a touch up, and they're not going to be able to help them. Those people, if you had the ability to come up with some type of way of documenting that, and then you come back every 2 to 3 years and look at it again, right? You can show them where are you at compared to where the last time I was there. And one thing I share to people, Carfax. When's the last time you bought a new car or a used car? Or have you lately?
Probably 5 years, I suppose.
Used or new?
Used, 5 years.
Did you look at the Carfax?
Yeah, I'll glance at it. Yeah.
Why?
I want to see if it's been in an accident or been in a flood or
What's
something.
been done to it?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Where do they do that with a house?
They don't.
A property.
I mean, you have an inspection done.
Yeah, but where's it documented that it's time and time and time again? So that's the thought process.
Yeah.
Why can't we go through and start documenting how? All right, I'm not going to do business with you today, Jason, but what if I came and I did my complete evaluation of your place? I can document a few things. You can maintain yourself. You know what to work on this next year, 18 months. A storm event happens a year from now. You think it might damage. I come out again and I look at it and you know what? It was only 3/4 inch hail, 40-mile-an-hour winds. Don't see anything. Oh, you got a ridge cap that blew off. You know what? I'll go up and I'll fix that for you at $75, $100. That work for you?
Yeah.
Of course it will. I'll document it all. I got a new report of everything you can find. Now you can show that you've actually been working on your house. You've got all that documentation. I've already got you in my system, so if another storm event comes through, because the way software and technology is today, I can put a pinpoint on your property, and now I can track that. So if any time a hail of 1 inch or 1.25 inches comes over your house, I'm going to get a notification when it happens. If there's 70-mile-an-hour winds or greater, we'll get a notification. All of a sudden your phone's going to ring because guess what? What were you doing at 2 a.m. the other night?
Yeah, none.
You were sleeping.
Right.
Guess what I was doing? I was sleeping, but when I woke up in the morning, I have a list that your house had this event happen out it. I'm going to reach out to you and say, hey, can I come out and just check this out? Looks like something might have happened.
Right.
And in the world we live in today, that's the direction I believe technology is going. So that's kind of what we've tried to do is jump onto some technology, tie it into what we do, and then be able to help people, not just short term, but long term.
Tell me about the evaluation when you come out. There's a lot of roofing companies in town. What sets you apart the way you do things when you meet with a homeowner?
A lot of times when we go out and we're doing it and it's like the streets are flooded, we can go whatever happened out in Pleasant Hill here a couple of weeks ago or these towns where there's been some significant hail or high winds. Every contractor and their brother, especially now the market's tight, but they're all coming out and they're all going door to door. They're doing everything that they do, right? And a lot of them, they spend anywhere from, I'm going to say 10, I'll give them credit, 10 to 20 minutes. They're going to look the property over. Typically, they get up on the roof, they look at the roof, they come back down, and they're letting you know that, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Looks like you have some storm damage to it. A lot of times, not all the contractors, some of the contractors are preaching that the insurance carrier isn't there for you as a homeowner. They're there to take advantage of you. They're there to pay as little as possible. That's some of their selling, that's their sell spill. I don't believe that's completely true. I don't believe it. Actually, I don't believe it's true at all. I believe they're trying to help their customer out just as much as he's going to try to be able to put your roof on, or I would try to put your roof on. They're there to help. Our process is much more thorough because if I've already gone through your property a year ago, 2 years ago, even a week ago, I do a thorough evaluation. I want to know everything that's going on. So our evaluation process takes a little bit longer. Anywhere from 30 minutes to 45 minutes, I'm going around, I'm documenting everything. Even the stuff we don't do as a company, I'm going back and documenting, right? We get up on the roof, we do the same documentation. When we're done, back in 2017, we jumped onto drone technology.
Okay.
So we actually have drones. I can't tell you that every house that we do an evaluation, we can fly a drone, because you get in some of these neighborhoods, the houses are completely covered by trees.
You can't fly a drone.
You can't fly a drone.
Right.
I'm going to crash it, something, safety, whatever regulations. I get too close to an airport, I can't fly it. But on 80% of them, I'm able to fly that drone. So what we do is after we've done our evaluation, we'll fly a drone. The drone flies autonomously. So it's programmed flight, takes anywhere from 8 to 15 minutes to do the flight. Once it's done doing that flight, it'll land, all that data gets uploaded. It's able to give us our measurements. It gives us all the components. It has artificial intelligence that's able to identify the components of the roof as well as hail or wind damage, all in a nice report. We have a physical report for the evaluation on the exterior, so it's the same thing. I get a nice detailed report. So all this reporting that we have, we're then able to take for our customers. We're able to take that data, those that need to file a claim, and we can actually send that over to the insurance carrier before that adjuster comes out. So now before the adjuster comes out, they've got a complete report of the exterior. They got a complete flyover with the drone. They're already able to see what we've documented. We also provide them with a complete estimate. And 85% of insurance carriers use a software called Xactimate for their estimating. We have an Xactimate estimate along with it, with the ESX file for that adjuster. So before the adjuster even shows out to the property, they've got everything that we're showing them. So when that adjuster shows up, they already know, hey, this is what we've seen, and they're already so we're helping them process the claim before they're even there to do the claim. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so it's not like when they're showing up, we're there to be confrontational with them. We're there saying, hey, this is the stuff that we've identified. Let's walk around together and find the things that's going to be best for this homeowner so we can help them get taken care of.
That's great. And I imagine that makes the process easier, makes it more likely a claim will be accepted, all that.
On that side, right now, we're finding success in that. Right now, about 15 to 20% of the claims that we're actually doing that process on, we're finding they're not sending adjusters out on. They're able to take the documentation because it's really good documentation. It isn't like it's just we took a photo. It's exactly what they need and what the insurance carrier needs. So I believe as technology, I think we're in a phase right now when we're going from there wasn't technology to this new area, and it's kind of unknown because technology is changing so quickly. But I think we're in the middle of transitioning over to what is that going to look like in the next 5 or 10 years, because you look across the nation for insurance claim matters. You look at the Floridas, the Texases. You can even look here in Iowa. There's carriers that are pulling out of the market because whether it's underwriting or whatever it is, there's too much risk for them to be involved. And I think technology is the one factor that can help eliminate the risks that these carriers are taking. And not just the carriers, you can take it all the way over to the mortgage. Who actually owns your homes?
The bank.
The bank.
Right.
All right, so ultimately, who's actually at risk ultimately? The lien holder, whoever owns that property. They're the ones that are, if a homeowner doesn't do the repair to their damages to their house, who's actually paying for it? Well, the bank.
The bank.
If it ever goes back to the bank's the ultimate holder. So I believe through technology, insurance companies and lenders are all going to come into line of this is the best way to do it. So if something does happen to a property, we're able to cover it and it's in the same condition after it's all done. Because As deductibles get higher and higher and higher, you know, you go down to Texas and Florida, I believe I heard in Florida, they have deductibles that are almost 20%.
Oh, gee.
Texas, I've heard they're up to 5%. Well, 5% of a $500,000 home, I mean, that's a lot of money.
People don't have that kind of money sitting around.
Yeah, and so what aren't they going to do?
They're not going to do the repair.
Okay, and who's that going to cost? It's going to cost the bank, and the bank isn't going to. No different than auto insurance. If you have a car and you have a loan against it, what are you required to have?
Insurance.
Full coverage on it. So we're in this transition of how this is all going to work.
So you mentioned after when you were just talking, what happens? You know, a lot of times these people will come in from out of town, the stormers you call them. Maybe they do the job and then they're gone. What about you guys? What happens after the roof repair is done, the siding repair is done?
Now, if you're looking at just our company and what we do, back to the original why I left where we were at before, we want to be brick and mortar. So, for example, our office here now, 2013 we opened. It's 2014. Now we own our building that we're in. We've been here 11 years. We're growing. We're part of the community. We went from 80-90% of our business being within about a 6 to 10 mile radius of this office location. We've expanded that now to about a 60-mile radius. We're expanding it out further to where we feel we're at a 90-mile radius. We have a satellite office over in Tiffin that covers Cedar Rapids and Iowa City. And our model is we're going to continue to grow. But we don't want to just be here and not be here next year. So if a storm event, or like right now, we have customers that we can serve and serve and serve. You know, with us, we have a warranty and a lot of solid companies. And I'm not saying we're the only company out there, but there's solid companies that are out there that are offering you a 10-year warranty on their labor and what they do. And that's something that we do. If you look at us, how have we grown as a company? We install an Owens Corning. One of the shingles we install is Owens Corning duration shingle. Owens Corning is one of the top 3 manufacturers. I would argue that they're the number one manufacturer of shingles. In the process, there's top tiers that go along. So you have preferred contractors, you have the platinum contractors for Owens Corning. And so to be accepted as a platinum contractor, Owens Corning reaches out to you. It's because of how you help the community, who you are as a contractor. You pay your bills. Are you being successful in all your ethics and what you do? And we were 6 years ago, we were asked to be on that, a platinum preferred contractor. So that's, if you look at the nation as a whole, the top 1% of contractors are actually a platinum preferred contractor for Owens Corning. In the Iowa, I haven't looked at it recently. I think it's upwards of 10 contractors in the state of Iowa are platinum. It might be up to 12. I don't know the exact number, which is fairly exciting, and we're pretty proud of that. One thing we're really proud of is in January, we were approached by Owens Corning again, and they asked us if we would represent the North Central District and be on their advisory council. So we're actually one of 14 contractors nationally that represents Owens Corning, the Owens Corning brand. We meet with executives on the team, and we discuss matters in roofing. How can we help roofing become better? What can we do to help the industry? So we're really have successfully, through what we've grown in our mission and the way we're going as a company, established ourselves that we're sitting next to contractors that do hundreds of millions of dollars of business. And to be able to be on that council and that board is really important to us. But I don't know if that answers the question of what you're saying. We're here for our customers, and for us, it's serving Iowa.
And part of being in the community and a part of the community, in my mind, as a business, is giving back, and that in getting to know you and talking to you is a big part of what you guys do here.
I think it.
And I know you don't like talking about it much, but
I think it goes back to, again, us talking about our background. Your son, back to my brother. It's back to giving. There's always people that need help, and for us, let's go back to 2008-9. Man, it feels really good. Let's just go 2003 to 2008. Man, it really feels good when you're on top.
Yeah. And you're just making money. And
When life's going good, in
Yeah.
your life, look at the best times of your life. You look back and you're like, man, wasn't life good? But as you go into 8 and 09, then you have these challenges that come along. And some of the lowest points that we had when we were getting to 2012, we didn't have enough money for groceries. There were things that we were doing that my wife was on eBay at the time, selling clothes on eBay so we could have enough money so we could get ourselves groceries the next week.
Sure.
On top of what we were doing. And again, if you go back and you look at some of the most successful businesses, it's staying true to your roots and what you've been through. And I think when you're coming from a family with disabilities, you have a very good insight of what that is because the people you get, the people you're around, and your core values. And so what we've always tried to do is stay true to that. How can we look at the areas that we weren't able to provide in or that we were struggling to provide in today while we're having our successes that also helps the community around us? So we try to do it quietly and silently is what we try to do.
Right. Anything in particular, any particular area, or do you just respond to needs as they kind of are set in front of you?
It's been kind of how they're set in front of me. There's, again, going back to our beliefs, and we have aligned in the same beliefs. One time I just had I wanted to reach out, and there was this overwhelming urge to go into Des Moines and be able to help somewhere in Des Moines. And I literally identified just through this gut feeling, and we went up and we started being able to help this group within Des Moines area and help them get established as a nonprofit and grow there. Today, they're a very successful nonprofit organization that's doing extremely well. And as they identify and they come in front, I don't know how to explain it outside. You just know that it's right, and then you go do it. I don't know. That's how
Right.
that's how I've done it.
Right.
And there's little things you do. It's part of our mission statement is you do what's right. And when you're in the moment, it's what's right. I'm sure everybody, whoever's going to listen to this or whoever's out there, everybody has been in their car. They've pulled up to a stop sign. There's a person standing on the side of the road with their sign, help me. And many times you're like, nope, nope, nope. But then there's that one moment and you don't know what it is. Can you explain it? And it's just like, all right, I'm supposed to do this.
Right.
And then you roll the window down, you give them whatever you want to give them. And the challenge is, can you give them, roll your window up and drive away and not think about it again? Because I think where you get into a problem is when you drive away and now you start to evaluate what you just did and what they're doing with that money, that's where you get yourself in trouble.
Yeah, you can.
So for us, it's just if it's right in the moment, you go and you do it, and then you move on.
So do the right thing is part of your culture here. And I think one of the hardest things to do as a leader is to establish a good culture and the culture you want. When I talk to people who work here, they seem very happy to work here. Talk about your culture a little bit and managing people and helping them grow, I guess.
So as we've sat and talked kind of about the story, back when I was a framer, the great thing about being a framer is compared to a trim carpenter is a framer only has to be this accurate.
Right.
Right?
Right, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if everybody sees it. There's a gap in between here.
Right.
And it's rough. So as I left the framing industry to get into this business, I was not a refined person.
Right.
And I'm not saying that I'm refined today. I'm still a carpenter. I mean, if you serve the right person, he was a carpenter. But
Right.
But I was a carpenter. And my way of solving problems when I first started this was if you were on a job site and it was framing, it wasn't going the right way, you looked across the guy from you on the saw table and you're like, get this done. You need to do it like this. And it's much more direct. And I've learned and I've grown to the fact of it was my way back then. And today we've done very well at establishing a very good team and you go back to the culture. What are our core values? Do we all align in what we do? And it hasn't been easy growing the business Because in the beginning, you're looking for anybody and everybody that wants to come alongside and build it. And there's a book called The Energy Bus. I can't tell you who it's by, but a book called The Energy Bus. It's a great book to read about business. And it's basically, if you can imagine a bus going down the street, it stops at every stop, right? And there's somebody that gets on the bus, and what happens? There's always somebody that gets off.
Right.
And it's no different in business. When you start, there's people getting on the bus, and as you're driving down the road, there's also people that need to get off the bus. Maybe they're not sitting in the right seat. Maybe it's not the right person. Maybe it's not the right fit. And as we've driven our bus down the road since 2014, there's been great people that have gotten on the bus. And we've been very successful at helping them get from A to B. And I'm not telling you, in our call, and we believe this, you might come to work here or somebody might come to work here and they're trying to get somewhere. We're going to help them get from A to B. And B may not be with being with us. It might be somewhere else. However, there's something that individual has to grow through. If that makes sense?
Yes.
They need to grow through, whether it's within themselves, whether it's in business, or we can help them grow. We're going to help them grow to get to that next spot. So when they get off the bus, they're at a different place in life and they can grow from it.
There's a book that you've probably read called Good to Great.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they talk about the bus in that book as well, and finding the right people to be on the bus. And they may not be people who on paper, on their resume, look like they're qualified to do the job, but you just in talking to them know that they're going to be a good fit for the team.
Exactly.
Have you seen that?
Yes, yeah. No, and for us, we've identified people that, well, I'll give you the guy that runs my books. He was here my second year, and he came on hired as a salesperson. And I'm sitting in the office as I'm trying to sell. I come in, I'm trying to do my QuickBooks, I'm trying to get my orders done, and I'm frustrated. And I'm at one of those points where you feel like you're at your wit's end because you're trying to build something. And at that time, I wasn't trying to build what we have today, where we have over 28 people on staff doing the amount of business. I was talking about, I just wanted to get to $2 million in total revenue. And I'm looking at myself, and I look up, and he walks by the door, and I look, and he goes, "What's up?" And I'm like, I just wish I knew somebody that knew something about QuickBooks that could help me, because this is just, and then he turns around in his own quirky way says, "I'm a certified QuickBooks and trainer." And I'm like, "You're what?" He's like, "Yeah." He goes, "I do taxes for people every year. I probably do 5 different people's taxes, and accounting's what I really love. I just do sales." And I'm
Wow.
like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah." I go, $500 a week? He's like, "Sounds good." I go, "I'll let you sell on the side." He goes, "Even better." And he's my guy now. He's been running our books since that second year. And if it wasn't for him in that seat, I don't know if we'd be where we're at today without that. So it's been finding the right individuals, sticking them in their seats, and then that core value coming alongside. And again, I'll go back. A lot of people are probably going to listen to this. You got to have faith in something. And I don't care what it is. I mean, I guess I do care what it is because I know what my faith is in. But you have to have something bigger than yourself that leads you and drives you. Because if you actually have that person in your life or helping direct, and not just in your life, if you have a business or whatever you're involved in, if you don't have that individual or that source feeding you, you're never going to get to where you want to be because they're going to lead you there. And the one thing I said my second year, and shame on me because I still haven't done it to this day, I need to buy a notebook and set it here, and that's all that notebook is for, is to write a note when an event happens. I mean, back to the story, it was my second year, maybe my third, and I'm trying to run this business like I'm running it. Nobody's telling me, I got this, it's me, I'm going to bullhead myself through it. And we had hit a wall. And it was a Friday, and we had $19,800 in bills to pay, right? And I'm just an emotional wreck, and I'm coming across Douglas right here by the Pilot gas station. I come up over the bridge, and I'm having a talk with God, and we're like, "Hey, God, we've got this going on, and I'm really struggling with this, and by God, why don't you do this for me?" And literally, as I was crossing over, and it's kind of, I don't know what the word is for crossing it, but it was like I was crossing my own bridge. And as I got halfway across that bridge, I was just like, "I'm done. It's yours."
You gave it to him.
I did. I felt like I did. And I think in your experiences, that doesn't just happen once.
Right.
That's a continuous path as you're growing through life.
Because you wander off. And then
you wander off and you come back in. In that moment, I'm telling you, I crossed that bridge and I was like, I'm done. And I got here to the office and I walk in and Chris comes walking up and Chris looks at me. He goes, what are we going to do? I got $18,800 in bills to pay. And when I crossed that bridge, there was a euphoria. I can't explain it. I do remember it. I don't know if I remembered it in the moment as much as I remember it today, but there was this euphoria. And when I pulled into that in front of the office and I walked into Chris and Chris asked me, and I had zero concern. I said, Chris, I go, God and I had a talk on the way here to work today. Pay him. Write the checks. He goes, really? And I'm like, I'm done. He's going to handle this, and I'm done. I'm going back. I got to get my work done, and we're taking care of this. And I went back, and I worked, and it was, did I tell you? Have I told you this?
No.
4:38, 4:40. You hear the ding from the front door. I stand up. I come walking out. There's this, to me, I was in my 40s, so I thought she was an old woman, but she's probably only 58. Right. She comes walking in her gray hair, and she's like, you guys came out and did an evaluation for us, and we had a claim filed, and it got approved. And my husband and I have decided that we want to use you. I'm supposed to give you you said we need to give you our, ACV check, and this check is it's $19,950. Who do I make the check to?
That's a total God thing.
How do you explain it?
No, you can't.
You can. You can.
Yeah.
And Chris comes out of his office and the look on his face, and why I share this with you because it goes back to culture.
Right.
All right. People that work here, when you experience that, and in the moment when that was going down, it wasn't like Chris and I were having this old experience. It was just a fact. It was kind of like when you talk to somebody like, oh, yeah, God and I had this talk, and you move on. That's all this was. This was just a moment. And I was going through, and we didn't sit there and talk about it all day, and we were in the corner having our prayer and everything like that. It was just that moment. And he experienced it. Well, guess what now? Chris is on the same page. There's a little bit more belief. And as we've gone through and you build those beliefs on beliefs and beliefs and you sit there and you watch this happen, there's a culture that's going on. And then you start aligning. And it took me time. It took time to put your core values to it. And then you start to value your core values. And then you go to our ultimate of you do the right thing. The whole team now they all believe it. They see it. They feel it. They understand it. It isn't like I have to sit there and tell that story every single time because every single person, it might be one of our guys out in the field helping a homeowner. It's an 80-year-old woman that doesn't have the ability to pay the deductible. It shouldn't get approved, but the adjuster comes out and approves it. Oh, by the way, I'm going to give you overhead and profit, and I'm going to add this to it, and I'm going to add this to it. And now you have a homeowner that had leaks, had problems going on in their home, and you're just able to take care of everything. And not just take care of it, you're able to put that person in a better position.
Right. Peace.
And with that comes a culture and an environment of everybody believing in everything. And the ones that don't come in line, nothing against them, there's other places for them to go. Or if they're not the right person in the right seat, guess what they did do? They've grown from it. They've watched it. They've experienced it. I don't think we've had too many people that's ever left here that there's been some type of
negative.
Yeah. You're always going to have one or two.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens. That's just numbers. But most people, they come through. We let them know, hey, you're here, and I don't know how long you're here for. But all I want to know, all we want to have happen is while you're here, you're able to grow. We want you, when you leave here, to feel like you're a better person and you can be more successful wherever you're going to.
Where do you see this going?
If you look at our business goals,
I don't care.
For me,
everything. Because it's more than a business to you.
Yeah, it's about helping people.
Yeah.
And part of your struggles when you're a business owner, you get to that point is I don't want it to be about me, but it's I don't, who, where do I see it going? I just see a lot of people being helped.
Yeah.
I see a lot, and I think as much as that's actually helping people. And if you look at another way of helping people is, if you talk to any business owner today, it's super hard to hire somebody.
Yeah. I hear that a lot.
And the loyalty of people that you hire, most people it's like 3 years and they're moving on somewhere else. I don't believe that's true. And that's just my belief. And
I don't know that people want to do that.
I don't. And I believe it goes back to what we just talked about. It's about culture. It's about opportunity. And everybody talks about work-life balance. It's work and then you have life. Yes, there's a balance involved, but it isn't like equal work, equal life. You have work. Work is what brings the money. And I don't need to mock people that want to have a life balance, but there's work-life balance. And to be able to create a culture, a work-life balance that's healthy for them and their family. The ability to grow within a company and not just some people, you know what? They want to be salespeople their entire life and they want to make X amount of income and that's where they want to be. Great. There's other people that want to come in if you're in the right culture and you want to be a leader and you want to give back and you want to help people succeed and you want to watch people grow alongside you and not be afraid to let somebody grow. There's people better than me, Jason. There's people
Certainly
better
people
me
better than me, yeah.
Exactly, and they deserve to be above me. I'm the owner of the business, but there's people, and the same in a management. You know what? There's the ability to have somebody come along. You hire them. They're actually more talented and they're better than you. You go out and make a great living, and you help that person become successful, maybe even be a position above you. How awesome is that for that person?
There's not a limited amount of success in the world. You know, you're not holding people down because there's only X amount of success.
So where's it going?
Right.
I think, how far can we spread? Our goal, we want to serve Iowa. I can go to a Kansas City. I can go to an Omaha. I can go to Denver, Colorado, Minneapolis. I can go to Dallas. I can go to all these big cities where there's millions of people. We want to serve the people of Iowa. I believe our sweet spot is the Des Moines big, but the 100,000 on down. I think 50 to 100,000, and then serving the 9 counties around that area. I see that as being an area in Iowa right now that's every year is getting less and less and less quality contractors that are able to help the homeowners and property owners, and at the same time still stay in that community and serve the communities that they're working in.
And actually be a part of it.
Yeah, if you go back to where I'm from, there's I'm nothing against. There's small contractors that are up there. However, we're in Iowa. You've seen storm events. If a storm event comes through one town and there's one roofing contractor, one exterior contractor in that town, the fact of the matter is that contractor cannot serve that neighborhood.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Somebody has to be there for them. And we want to be the contractor that's able to serve them, maybe not in that little community or that community that they're in, but at least is one county over at the county seat or somewhere within. You call me, we're going to be out there to help take care of your leak. In the middle of winter when you have ice damming, we can come help you. That's on a big scale of where we want to do. And when we get to that point, I don't know what our next step would be.
Right.
I really don't. But back to technology in the industry, we got solar coming on. Right now I don't know if solar's completely right. I'm watching it. I'm watching some of my competitors get into it. I don't know if it's too early, too late. I don't feel that it's exactly right now, but that's going to be a market that we'll probably jump into. Again, being able to help homeowners. I don't know if I like the current sales approach to solar. Show me your electric bill.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah, show me your electric bill, and I'm going to tell you what I can budget around your electric bill.
Right.
How about I show you what I've got for a solar package and what it's going to run you and what it's going to save you, then you show me your solar bill.
Yeah. I want the ROI as a homeowner.
Yeah, and if I'm showing you my money up front, now I can sit there and put a package based around, and I can put I can make X amount. Most people only want 80% or 70, 60% of whatever it is, the value back to you. So, yeah, I just see us even serving Central Iowa and on a bigger scale, serving people that are in need. We're going to serve people in that we're going to serve them a service, roofing, siding, windows, gutters, and whatever that grows into. But then also we're going to be able to help individually how many different organizations and people out there that need our help financially or support that way.
Is there anything I haven't asked you about that you want to cover?
I don't.
This is what, when I go out for 13 and I do shoots, it's always great having a photographer because
Yeah.
they'll think of things.
They'll think of something
Yeah.
that we completely forget about.
Yeah. But I mean, there's two of us.
Yeah, no, we're in our industry. If you go back, not as much about the story, but you look at our industry. Our industry is the wild, wild west, and I think all too often, people as a whole get caught up in their lives, and they fail to be prepared for the worst of times. We just did a TV shoot where I think the final line was something to the effect of, "We don't want to just be there during your worst time. We want to be there all the time," if that makes sense.
Because a lot of times you're there during the worst time.
Yeah, well, a lot of times that's what happens. I mean,
Right.
like right now, you have a tornado come through, a huge hailstorm come through. I'm sorry. I'm not sitting here wishing that my neighborhood got hit with hail.
But
It's what I do.
Things are going to happen.
But it's going to happen. And if you don't have a top list of contractors you're going to look to and you're going to decide the day that it happens, that's what you're going to do, or you think you're going to call your builder and they're going to, I mean, if you're new housing, I mean, a lot of small towns in Iowa, they're not new homes.
Right.
Those homes are years old.
Very old.
And those individuals that have to have work done their home, they don't understand the complications behind having to repair something that's 50, 60 years old. Ooh, it's a lot greater than one of these houses that are out here in West Des Moines or in a brand new neighborhood. Those are easy to fix. That's not a problem. When you get into old neighborhoods and you have 2 to 3 layers of shingles on it and you have siding that's whatever, it's got asbestos in it, and then you got iron in your paint, or you know what I'm talking.
Right.
Those are challenges. And if you aren't forward thinking, and unfortunately a lot of homeowners want to own a home, but they're not forward thinking about what it's going to take to take care of it,
To maintain it.
And if you're not able to spend $2,000 to $3,000 a year on your home on maintaining it, there's a day of reckoning coming.
Because you'll be made to. You'll be made to care.
You're going to be made to care. So I guess there's that side of it. Yeah. So.